Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to go live with Karen Ranzi, who is on Instagram as Super Healthy Raw, I believe. Let me see if I can find her. And we are going to talk. Oh, here we go. Karen is just about to join me now. Hello, Karen.
Hey, Ronnie, how are you?
Yeah, very good, very good. How are you?
Doing great.
Having a good day?
Having a great day, yes.
Have you been enjoying the bundle so far?
Yeah, I mean, it looks beautiful. So many beautiful, beautiful ebooks. It's just so nice to have growing community. When I started Raw Vegan, there was no such thing.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that a little bit. How did you start off and find out about a raw vegan diet?
What was that?
How did you find out about the raw food diet?
Well, actually, my son, Marco, who is involved in the Raw Vegan Bundle, he was sick with asthma and chronic ear infections as a young child. Between 5 weeks and 3 years old, he had asthma. I couldn't figure it out because I was vegan. I didn't understand how. I thought we were eating healthy, but we obviously were not. And I had the example of my grandmother, and I tell this story frequently, that my grandmother in 1921 had asthma and emphysema, and she read a little book called The Mucusless Diet Healing System that came out in 1918, and it changed her life. The doctors expected she was going to die in a few months of emphysema, and she ended up living another 45 years. But I wasn't raised that way. I was raised on a mainstream standard American diet because my mother felt we needed animal protein.
Sure, sure. And a lot of people were taught that back in the day, I suppose.
Yeah. Even though I had this like amazing example right in my family. And it's true, even though I raised my kids this way and other family members see that, they're still not willing to make changes even when they're really ill. So
Do
you
you
just
ever, yeah, are you ever concerned about nutrition at all? Like, do you worry about any nutrient? Do you ever think, oh, I need to eat more of this to get more of that? Or do you ever worry about anything on a raw diet?
definitely, definitely. There were years where I was eating mostly fruit and I started having some deficiencies. And I really believe now that, it depends on your fruit, because here in the northeastern United States, especially during the colder time of year, all of the fruit is imported and it loses nutrients during the shipping. I still believe we need to eat plenty of fruit, but I also believe that we need to eat plenty of vegetables and greens. And I was having mineral deficiencies. I had these cracks on the corners of my mouth. For the longest time, I couldn't figure out what was going on. I went for blood work and it didn't show up anything, but there was definitely something going on and it was painful and it got really sore. And I started adding a lot more green in, went away and never came back.
What do you think that was?
I think I was having a problem with minerals. I just wasn't getting enough from the fruit.
Do you know
And
any particular minerals it might have been, or
I'm not 100% sure what it was. And it didn't show up on my blood work either. Everything looked pretty normal. So if it had shown up on my blood work, I would have more of an idea. But
yeah, no, yeah, yeah,
because the difference with the greens is really all those minerals,
more
um,
minerals for sure. Yeah.
that's my intuition, that it
Okay.
was
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
minerals. Yeah. But, also things like zinc. I think, people who aren't eating any nuts or seeds at all. And there was a period of time when I was When I started out as raw vegan in 1994, I was eating a lot of fat, and then it wasn't serving me because I felt sluggish. I didn't feel well on it, and I went to fruit, and I was eating mostly fruit. I wasn't eating enough green. I wasn't eating really any nuts. I was just eating fruit all day. And I had variety because there's a lot of variety in fruit, but I wasn't I don't think I was getting in enough zinc. And zinc, a lot of times, pumpkin seeds are a great source of zinc. So I will sometimes make a dressing with a small amount of pumpkin seeds or Brazil nuts.
Yeah, do you know any particular fruits and vegetables that are good for zinc?
I know there are some, but they're lower amounts. And so the
I've
high
heard, yeah,
really,
I think
in,
the berries, some berries are pretty good for zinc, maybe.
I think there are. I'm not sure exactly which ones have higher levels, but and I do eat a variety of
Mm.
fruits. So I thought I
Sure.
was getting for a while, but and my blood work showed I have a good. I mean, I every couple of years I go for a nutrition analysis, not regular blood work, but nutritional analysis. And
Yeah, it was good.
my zinc looked okay, but I do get concerned about it because that's one of the things that has been written that a lot of raw vegans can get low in zinc.
In zinc. Yeah, I mean, well, the book that I wrote in the bundle, so we're both part of this raw vegan bundle at the moment, and we're both happy to be part of that. And we're doing all these lives to help share a bit of information about that. Um, you're quite famous for the fact that you've written the book and taught a lot of people about bringing up children and pregnancy on a raw vegan diet and things like that. The book that I've got in the bundle is about raw vegan myths. And I wonder, what are the myths that you've heard about, pregnancy, bringing up children? Any ones that circulate that you've heard a lot that you think are kind of particularly damaging or dangerous or make people make the wrong decisions?
Well, I'll tell you a personal one
Sure.
that was really harmful and almost got me going the opposite direction. When I was just starting out as a raw vegan, there weren't really many people around doing it, but it healed my son from his asthma and it healed me from my cystic acne. So that was huge. So I got these immediate positive benefits, and that was very motivating for me to continue. However, I connected with a group in New York City and I
Yep.
started their meetings. And there was a man who just decided to talk about teeth and that we don't need, once we're raw vegan, we don't need to worry about dental hygiene anymore. Wow, was that a myth? And, being that I was a mom and, had young kids, and it was like I was just beginning. And that was like, because kids don't want to brush their teeth a lot of the time. And I was like, oh, they were saying apples and celery and all that
Yeah.
stuff. It's the teeth.
Well, you can see, look, I've done damage to my teeth. Similar thing, like that's kind of what I was hearing when I started off, and I was maybe already not the best with like brushing my teeth sometimes, and I don't really think, the funny thing is, I think people could maybe get away with it, but my problem, I believe, was I ate a lot of dates, and I think that was a real problem for me. Um, and I wonder if I'd not had the dates, if I would have had as much damage to my teeth. I think it might have been a lot different.
Yeah, the dried
But
fruit. I would send
yeah, the
my
dried fruit.
bags of dried figs and dates instead of candy and ice cream. I mean, for their health, for their overall health, yes. For their teeth, no.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
and like all the people in the raw food community would be walking around with bags of dried fruit, and I didn't realize how sticky it was. And so we all started having dental problems. And once you get
yeah.
into dental, once you get into dental and your permanent teeth and stuff, I mean, it's like you're with the dental profession for the rest of your life, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
It's not,
terrible. And
I don't wish it on anybody. So I tell everybody in my talks to be very careful, you know, and question everything that you hear, because there are people out there, you know, not looking at what really is healthy for you. And I don't know where this guy came off with that information. There was a
well,
woman
yeah.
in Russia who was going around showing people that she eats mango and durian and dates, and she never brushes her teeth.
Well, I think that, and it's like you say, people, you can get away with it or not get away with it, but you don't notice the damage for a while. And that's the problem as well, because with tooth decay style damage, it doesn't show up sometimes even on the outside. You don't feel it. And you go to your dentist and he's like, you've got 4 or 5 cavities. And you're like, but I don't feel anything. But if he drills into the tooth and shows you, it's just all rotten in the inside. And and if you leave it, it just cracks and falls out. And you're like, oh my God, he was right. You know, like it's really, or you get an unbelievable toothache. And, you know, I was, that's one of the things that I feel like I don't know why more of the people when I started were not much more clear about that. I think they wanted to act like, oh no, it's all right. You just look after your teeth, brush your teeth, whatever you find. Like, but no one. There was a lot of people promoting dates when I started off.
I always
Um,
say something else. It's not only the dates, it's the nuts.
right.
I used to, when I first started, I was eating a lot of nuts. I was more high fat. And the nuts, you know, if you're not taking care of your teeth, so that's the thing. It's like these people are telling you, oh, the raw food, it cleans your teeth. You don't have to brush your teeth. Well, you get all those nuts in there in between your teeth, that's going to start causing cavities as well. So it's the nuts, it's all the dried fruit. And, you know, you could eat a little bit of dried fruit and maybe a sauce or something. But I see people putting in like 5, 10 dates in a sauce. No, not even in a sauce. You don't want to be using that much date. You use a little bit as a sweetener. You don't want to be using all that dried fruit.
I'm glad that we kind of agree on like the dates in particular being a problem, because some people, when I tell them about this, they're like, I see them still eat dates and still eat dates, and I'm like, are you just not worried about like, you know, your teeth or whatever? Like, and other people will say things like, oh no, you just need to get enough minerals. You just, it's like, well, yeah, to some extent, but tooth decay is a different thing. It doesn't matter how many minerals you've got, how much nutrition you've got. It's not a deficiency thing. It's a specific thing that happens because of bacteria. And yeah, it took me years. I remember, like, I was trying to figure this thing out for years, and I realized that one of the things I started to realize is I got to the point where after every single meal I would use like floss. After every time I ate, I was flossing, and that started to really help. And then I was speaking to my dentist, and he was like, you know, um, the kind of damage you've got is kind of like someone's been sucking on like sweets, like sucking on sweets all day. And I said, could it be dried fruit? And he was like, yeah, it could be dried fruit. And it just clicked for me. I was like, why has no one told me this in like 6 or 7 years of doing this? You know, and it was so frustrating because I thought,
They're eating all that all day long.
yeah, and that's how I used to eat dates. I would put them in my mouth and sit and suck on them. Like that's exactly how I ate them, and I enjoyed them for sure. But you know, it wasn't. Looking back, it definitely wasn't worth it because exactly what you're saying. Once you've done that damage to your teeth, like you're in the dentist all the time, like once a year at least. And yeah, it's so you know, and I understand why previous generations like got all their teeth taken out and all that stuff, like because toothache and all that stuff is so miserable. It's like so painful.
Terrible. And it has to be something that is said to people when they come into this movement. That's why, like, even
100%.
annually
Yeah.
at the Woodstock Fruit Festival, one of my first talks is like this year, I'm 27 years raw. So my talk was 27 tips I wish I knew when I started a raw vegan diet 27 years ago. That's like one of the main ones on my list.
100%. Totally.
Have to know.
Because
they're not hearing it anywhere. Everybody's like, if it's raw, it's raw. And there's
I
a
mean,
lot of that are
yeah,
not.
yeah, yeah. But that was, I mean, it's funny because like when, so when I started, like everyone was reading 80-10-10 when I started. That was like the book when I started off, and in that book, Doug does say, but he doesn't make a big point of it, but he does say like, you know, dried fruit, cooked food isn't great for your teeth; it sticks to your teeth. But he didn't make it out to be a really big thing. I think I kind of missed it in the book. And when I would see Doug speak, if someone, a lot of people would ask about their teeth, and he would say, "Well, some people's teeth get better, some get worse. You need to look after your teeth, or else you'll lose them." But he didn't say anything like, "I just wish he'd said just don't." But the funny thing, but I observed him not eating dates. Like he doesn't really eat dates in the way that other people do, and so the evidence was there, but I wasn't like picking it up, you know. And Michael Arnstein's got a video about it as well, that he started eating dates and he all of a sudden had cavities.
Who is
Um,
that?
Michael Arnstein, he's got a video about that. But here's something I want to ask, because some of the myths that I've heard around like pregnancy and stuff, I think one of the worst things, um, some women get into raw or whatever and they've had a pregnancy and they're at the stage of breastfeeding. And I've heard of women being concerned that if they're not fully detoxed yet, that they're going to put like toxins into the baby. And sometimes it makes them either look for another source of milk or not breastfeed at all. And that can be kind of dangerous, I think.
No, that's very dangerous. I always recommend that a woman breastfeed. And you don't want to transition in the middle in the middle of pregnancy or breastfeeding. You don't want to do it at that time. You can go, it can be a very healthy pregnancy and childbirth, and you can eat a lot of raw food without going completely raw. Because when going completely raw, it does start a detoxification. And I have talked women out of it when they want to go completely raw during pregnancy and they haven't been following a raw vegan lifestyle before. I had one woman contact me and she said, Karen, I really want to work with you, but I know that you're going to tell me not to go completely raw, and I'm going to go raw no matter what because I really want to. And I made her promise me that she was not going to do it overnight, that we would work together over the period of the months of pregnancy, going gradually. And we did that, and she was fine. But for most women, I tell them, like, you can eat a lot of wonderful raw food, but just
Yeah,
don't go 100% during pregnancy because you don't want to detox so much that you
yeah.
cause diabetes. And
I would,
certainly don't want to go raw when you're nursing and stop nursing to detox. That's ridiculous because breast milk is the best thing for the baby. What are you going to do? Put the baby on a formula? Formula is
absolutely.
toxic and it doesn't have the mother's bacteria. The mother's bacteria is in the mother's milk, and that's why, if the mother can have a natural childbirth, which most women can, it's very healthy for the baby to be birthed through the birth canal and take on the mother's bacteria. And
Right,
I thought about this in my new book, Heal and Prevent Autism: Natural Solutions That Work, because they're finding that there's a higher risk of autism among women who have a combination of surgical childbirth and then not nursing their babies because the
oh my
baby's
God, yeah.
bacteria from the mother.
Not taking in the bacteria. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I mean, there's so much bad stuff that's happened with child care and child. I mean, so many. Something I learned was, like medical malpractice, like the damages, like, so the medical industry has to pay out billions of dollars in damages every year because people get harmed by, mistakes made in hospital or whatever. Um, but a huge amount of that money is to accidents in child rearing, childbirth, still, and that's quite frightening, really.
It's so tragic. It doesn't have to be that way.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you know, the women who have read Creating Healthy Children, I had a woman contact me yesterday and she said, you know, I was going the regular route. I was with a medical doctor to deliver my baby, but then I was kind of concerned about going the medical way, and I decided to listen to your advice. And she went with a natural midwife who wanted her to have a natural childbirth and was there for her when she was ready to birth, and she had a very healthy pregnancy. So why should a woman with a healthy pregnancy have a birth in a hospital, a place that is not feeling like your natural surroundings? With my first child, I was with a midwife in a hospital and I had such a long labor. And I think it's because I was not comfortable there. My body wasn't wanting to give birth because I was not comfortable. And so it's very helpful for a woman to be in a very natural surrounding when she gives birth and to feel the comfort of that surrounding and to stay away from drugs. One really sad thing that happened that ended up not being sad at the end was that my daughter had a very healthy pregnancy, beautiful, you know, beautiful, didn't gain so much weight as so many women gain. She gained like 18 pounds, and she was ready to have a beautiful childbirth after those 9 full months of beautiful pregnancy. And at the very end, she was with a midwife who didn't understand a vegan diet, and that vegan women don't gain the amount of weight very often that women who eat a standard American diet of animal food gain. My daughter gained 18 pounds. She was obviously pregnant. She had, you know, everything went well for her. And this midwife told her that she couldn't see her at the end, that she was going to have to go to the hospital. And this was very, very stressful. And we were really
Oh
concerned
yeah.
because it's such a high risk of C-section once you go to the hospital.
Oh God.
She happened to be very, very fortunate that this medical doctor who came in to to help her with the birth. I mean, she was like ready to birth when she went. She was ready. They turned her away at the very last moments, and there she was, very stressed. But this doctor read her plan and how much she really wanted to have a natural childbirth, that she had this full-term pregnancy, but that she only gained 18 pounds. And the midwife was concerned because she felt she didn't gain enough.
Oh,
And
for God's
but
sake.
the doctor was on board, and thank goodness he birthed her almost like the way like a home birth midwife would have. Um,
And I've
it,
heard this thing. Tell me if this is wrong or right. Vegan babies come out smaller generally, and that's actually a good thing
they
because they're
do
not damaging the mother so much and stuff.
much easier childbirth.
Someone's saying here, I had loads of arguments with doctors and midwives, all wanting me to eat cheese. There's a
Uh,
lot of evidence.
the worst.
Cheese,
Cheese is the
one
worst.
of the obviously most unhealthiest foods out there. Why would anyone recommend that for any situation apart from someone starving and there's nothing else? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Cheese
do you know,
is the mucus forming food on the planet. It causes every disease known to man, all the cancers, all the autoimmune conditions. And if you look in the medical journals, there's so much research on it.
I
But
need,
people,
I'd love to see a cheese book, just like a cheese milk or something like. But yeah, for sure. I actually believe that dairy is, I think it's worse than meat, right? I don't think it's worse ethically or whatever. Maybe it's not as bad. I don't know. But in terms of health, I think the fact that it has hormones in it, the insulin-like growth factor one, whatever it's called, like,
casomorphines,
it's what? Sorry,
casomorphines
in the
affects,
morphines. Yeah,
Yeah, and I see somebody said there, one woman said that her vegan children weren't smaller. So not all vegan babies are even small. And my kids did grow more slowly than other kids, but they were still on the growth chart. Just
So
lower
yeah,
percent of growth annually. But my our pediatrician, who totally supported me, said that my kids were totally on the growth charts and that they were growing normally. They weren't being pumped up with growth hormones. But I knew some vegan kids who were really tall.
yeah,
So, I don't think that it my pediatrician always said that look at the parents. Are the parents tall? The parents are tall, then maybe the kid could be tall.
yeah, totally. I mean, it'd be interesting to know if, because of maybe the hormones in milk, does that make, does that increase the height of people? I don't know. I, I think it actually doesn't, because I don't think there's like a general thing about vegan children being shorter as
No,
adults. I've never seen that be, and
Gabriel
I could
study.
understand the parents were concerned about that, but like I've never seen that being proven. And yeah, people tend to be in line with, as you're saying, their parents' heights, or maybe a little taller. And like I'm the exact same height as my dad, like the exact same height, right? And my mum's quite short, but and you see that with people, if they've got a really tall mum and dad, they tend to be in line with that. And I'm sure that's the same with vegan children as well.
Yeah. However, I have seen short parents with really tall kids. And I also have seen that some of them are drinking a lot of milk, taking in a lot of dairy, because those growth hormones will also make really tall people because we're growing like much faster, both in height and in weight, than we should.
Yeah, right. And therefore it might be growing all kinds of things. And like if you just the you'll know this obviously, but I believe the number one cause of death in children is childhood cancer. And it's funny because people will say to me things about the raw vegan diet, and does it give you this, does it give you that, this disease, that problem, and whatever. And people go on and on about these things, and I'm like, go and have a look at the diet of all the children dying of cancer. You will not find a fruitarian. You will not, what I mean? You're not going to find like they're all vegan children. This is children that are on the cancer diet. You know what I mean? Like the standard diet. They're being
Yeah.
forced. They don't even want to eat it. Like children don't even want to eat that crap. I've watched children being forced to eat that stuff.
And most
And
cancer, I really believe that it's from the high estrogens in animal food. I really do believe that. But there are other causes as well. I mean, we
genetics and yeah.
now we have glyphosate, we have genetically modified foods, and that's why it's so important to eat organically. So somebody's saying, but dairy is horrible for the bones, so being taller from dairy won't make much sense. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense at all.
It's
A
somebody said
high
that.
vegetarian diet caused me to have osteopenia. I've been vegan now 3 years and my bones are getting better and I'm even an inch and a little taller. That's
Oh,
great.
yes.
That's great. And the countries that have the highest consumption of dairy, interestingly, have the highest rates of osteoporosis. The United
Yeah.
States, Switzerland, Scandinavia,
And
Finland,
yeah,
they're
and I would,
rates of
yeah,
osteoporosis.
and I would like to say that like there have been studies on vegans or raw vegans having less bone density, right? But what they miss out from these studies is people that are less overweight have less bone density as well. And like they never point that out in the headline, you know what I mean? Like that's because they were at their correct weight. Like they weren't, like fat people have really good bone density, really strong because they've got so much weight on their bones. So if a vegan wants to improve that, or raw vegan, they can start weightlifting and do these things if they like. I do think that,
That's an interesting point, Ronnie, that I think
yeah,
a lot of people don't think about. is
Do
with
you
the
know
weight.
that there is a study, like, so there's been very few studies on raw vegans, but one of them was about bone density, and they had a bunch of raw vegans, and they said that, like, less bone density, but not, the bones weren't less strong. There wasn't any sign of more fractures or anything. And then they said they measured the vitamin D, and the raw vegans had higher vitamin D than the average, than even the person on the standard diet who's got D in supposedly animal foods. And they said it was because they were more conscious about going out and getting sunlight. And I thought that was really interesting.
That is,
However, I have known one raw vegan that became D deficient and developed some bone issues, but they were able to reverse it. But um, the sun's important,
sun
and
is very important.
yeah,
I take my vacation in the wintertime. If I'm going to go away in the winter, I'm going to go to a sunny place.
I love that idea. I love that idea. I think that people should really do that, because you've got Woodstock in the winter and stuff, in the summer and stuff like that. You've got such great weather in New Jersey, you know. So yeah, here's another one, Karen. Here's another one. Okay, we've got some questions, but here's another one. If anyone wants to ask questions for me or Karen,
Yeah, this
some
person,
advice.
yes, and countries with low dairy consumption have no osteoporosis. Like the traditional Asian cultures, like you don't see osteoporosis there. They lived on like rice and vegetables. So,
So here's one, Karen. Some people say this is a myth or an idea that goes around. Let me know what your take is on it. That women, if they go raw, they're going to lose their period for a while, or they might lose their period forever, or whatever it is. What's your opinion on that?
okay, so I love that question. I don't get it very often, so I'm happy to answer that. And many years ago, I did a video on that um, because when I went raw vegan, I had actually been on prednisone for 6 years because I wasn't getting my period. And they said that that would bring my period back. It never brought my period back. It was also supposed to help with my cystic acne, and my skin got worse. It was just, it had all these side effects. And then I went raw vegan, and that was another really positive benefit was that I had earlier had premenstrual syndrome. I was every month got like these terrible cramps. I would sometimes be in bed, couldn't get out of bed. I was in
Yeah.
such pain. I would have this really heavy flow, and it was really pretty awful. And then I went raw vegan, and here I was. I had cystic acne. My sometimes I didn't get my period for a year, and then when I did get it, it was a nightmare. But even when I didn't get it every month, I was in terrible pain. And suddenly I go to getting my period every 28 days, like clockwork, and only for 2 to 3 days, but super, super light. It was almost not there, but it was there. But it was like almost joyful. I was happy that I had it. And when I went through menopause, I actually missed it because that's the way women should be getting their period.
Yeah, and are you saying? Can you just confirm? So you went for 10, 11 years without your period before you
No,
actually went.
I didn't go for 10, 11 years without it. Sometimes because of what I was eating and how I was living on this mainstream diet, I would get my period sometimes once a year, once every other year. And that's
Really?
why I went on to that hospital because I
Was
had
it
found a doctor there who specialized in that. But all she did was put me on prednisone.
was
That
that
did,
before you had children, or after you had children?
oh, that was way before I had kids.
Oh, right. Okay. Oh, wow.
And I was vegetarian, but I
So,
ate
so
a lot of.
yeah. So, Karen, I remember having a group. I was just teaching beginner's guide to the raw vegan diet, and I was, pardon me, I was teaching a small group, and there was a young woman in the group, and she said, um, I lost my period, or I don't have my period, and I said, well, okay, well let's look at this a little bit. So what height are you? So I got her height, I got her weight, I got, I was checking it out, and I just calculated it using an online calculator. I said, well, you're actually technically underweight. You know, you're underweight here. So what you need to, how many calories go into it, a little checkout, and she's eating a little less than she needs. So I just say, well, you probably need to start eating more and try that out and see what happens. And a week later, she came back to me and she said it had come back again, And then that's all it was for her, was like she had to put on a little bit of weight. And
Yeah,
so I think there's some women that's what happens when they go raw. They just go kind of underweight because they're like not eating enough for a few months
that's
or whatever.
exactly it. And there's a couple of people who I know, young women in the raw vegan community, who left it because they were having some health concerns. And I saw that they hardly ate. You
Yes,
can't go into a raw vegan diet and eat so minimally. You
you've
have to,
got to love to eat.
you're satiated. You just don't not eat. That's
Yeah,
not a good idea. You need the
yeah.
calories.
Did you ever hear people say back in the day when you were starting off, did you ever hear people say things like, you don't need to eat as much because you get so much nutrition from raw food or things like that?
I heard that as well. And that didn't work for me because I lost too much weight when I first got into being a
Yep.
raw vegan back in 1994. I was very lightweight. And I even spoke with Doug Graham, and he told me, he said, Karen, you're just not eating enough food. And he was really right on with that.
Do you know
I
what's so
stopped
funny?
using the
What's
amount and I gained my weight back.
what I've never understood about this, Karen, maybe you can give me your opinion, but why is it that people undereat on a raw diet and they don't realize they're undereating? Like they don't realize they're hungry. It's really strange to me.
Because it's where they're coming from. Because especially if they're coming from a diet of like where they had a piece of chicken and
Yep.
rice and a vegetable, and they thought that was enough, and then they're going to eat the same way when they come to a raw vegan diet. I mean, if they're not eating loads of nuts and they're going to a more low fat diet, they're going to lose an incredible amount of weight. And that's what happened to me. I went down to like 90 pounds, and I'm supposed to be like 114, 115, which I've been really consistent with many, many years now because I know how to gain weight. I know how to lose weight. It's very easy to me now. But back then, when I transitioned, even though I was a vegan, but I was eating a lot of beans. I was eating even oil, which is 100% fat. I was getting a lot of high fat foods. And then here I am going to a fruit and green way of eating. I didn't realize that I needed to be eating a lot more. So that was really important with my calories to make sure I was getting enough
Sure.
fresh fruit. Really
Let me,
important.
so let's talk about your contribution to the bundle. I think everyone was asked to write a new book. Were you able to write a new book, and what was the book that you contributed?
Yeah. I couldn't believe that I was going to write another book while I was in the middle of completing my book on autism. So I had a lot of work in front of me, which I was like all summer
Writing.
just at these two things. My finishing my autism book, which Heal and Prevent Autism, came out mid-August. And then I was already working on the recipe book. So what I did was I have a course called the Raw Vegan Certification course. And I have one of my students who finished about 4 years ago. She asked me, she said, Karen, I'd really love to be in the bundle with you. Would it be okay if we did an ebook together? And what we would do all these great transitional recipes that people would love, all raw, but like things like raw vegan eggless egg salad, which is actually
Ah,
healthy egg salad and lots of veggies in it too. And so we decided to do that together, and we each put in like, I don't know, we have like maybe 30 to 40 recipes. So each of us put in like half of those. So
Mhm.
for me, who already has a bunch of recipe books, I was like, what am I going to, how am I going to start creating all these recipes now? But I did have a lot of recipes that I haven't put out there yet. So we did that recipe book together. It's called Ready, Set, Raw. And the
Love it.
subtitle is Raw Food Fast, but not Fast Food.
So who was that wrote it with you?
So one of my students, and her name is Lauren Orlando,
Yeah,
and she's
neat.
on Instagram as Lauren underscore fit for real.
Awesome.
So Lauren and I did that book together, and it came out nice. And we have lots of great transitional recipes on there. And I really like your book. I'm looking forward to reading about the myths. I
Yeah.
bet I identify with a lot of them because um especially when I was starting, it was like, and it's amazing to me that 27 years later, a lot of those uh, same things are being advised to people.
Still going
That's
on, yeah.
what my mind, that how could it still be advised to people?
It's funny though, Karen, because people are still reading books from like 60, 70 years ago. People will still read it, like Arnold Ehret and stuff like that. They still come across that stuff. And it's, you were talking about like apples cleaning your teeth and stuff like that. I think that's Herbert Shelton said something like that in a book ages
I
ago. And
might one of his books as well.
yeah, and so, but there's, it's funny because we think, because we're in the bundle, we're around people, we think there's a lot of raw food books out there. There aren't really. And they're certainly not in the shops, the big shops. And like people have to really come into this community. But there's there's a lot of recipe books. There's books on specific topics, but there's not so many books that are like a totally comprehensive guide kind of thing. So I think some of these things aren't really covered. Some of the and people want to put that positive spin on it. But I think the dangerous thing is really the mentality that people get into, which is um, they become this black or white of if it's natural, it's good for me, and if it's man-made or medical or something, then it's bad. And therefore, they go down this mindset of like, I need to do everything natural and everything like um, I need to find the natural approach to everything. And what happens is, you know, not often, but people will at times get, say, like Lyme's disease or something like that. They have a tick and they get Lyme's disease. Well, that's just not something you can fast and it'll go away. You know, and these things happen where people try and do these things, and there's antibiotics and stuff that probably work, but they'll avoid them or ignore them. Um, and I totally believe that for most of the chronic diseases out there, the raw vegan diet is the best thing for people to do. Totally believe it. But what I'm starting to realize now is if your health condition is not caused by a bad diet, then the diet isn't the thing that's going to change it. The diet will help your body deal with it. But, it's just like someone cuts their arm off. It doesn't matter how good your diet's getting, that's not going to heal. So,
Yeah.
and I feel the same with like cancer, to be honest, and some things like if you have got quite late stage cancer and stuff like that, I don't know how your diet could get super good and just might be too late. And that's hard for people to hear and hard to say. And I think that
There's a
there,
lot of things that depend. It depends, and it's very individual. I mean, I have worked with people with cancer, many different kinds of cancer over the past 22 years that I've been working with people. And I have seen people who are highly motivated be able to turn around cancer. And I know that there are some raw food institutes that have also had some great successes, but there are some situations where you have to do other things.
yeah,
Maybe
I don't think it's, yeah.
look at not only food, but other therapies. I know some people who have done like vitamin C therapy, or infrared saunas. They've had to look into doing other things to add on to what they're already doing, what they're already eating. So I used to also believe, you know, because I read all those books, that's all I did was research for many years. And I believed that raw food was everything. I I really, like, even when I work with somebody, I take a total approach. I look at what's going on, and sometimes something else is needed. And like what you said, you know, I know that there are some people, like, they will even look at it like getting into an accident. They might not even go and go to a hospital. It depends. You know, there are some situations where it could be healed at home, but if it's something like you break a leg or something, I'm going to go to a hospital.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky that one of the things I tell people to go to events, and I say go and meet people in real life, whether it's a festival. I mean, if you can get to the festival, you really, really, really should go. It's the best thing. But if it's a potluck or local events, or if a speaker comes, go and meet people, be around people, because you learn things from being around people that you don't pick up from books. And I went to a festival, I remember years ago, and Rosalind and Doug Graham were there. And I just remember something happened with Francesca, their daughter, and they took her to a hospital. And I remember just thinking, wow, they just went straight to the hospital. Like it was something that happened with her ear, or something went in her ear. And it kind of made me realize, like, you know, even they, in certain situations, don't have any drawback or any holdback with going to the hospital. Like, if it's outside of their expertise, they're not going to try and deal with it. And I think that it's things like that that you learn from being around people that you don't sometimes pick up from the books and the videos, where they want to talk about all the positives and all the benefits, and you know, and all the
I'm
stories of healing, the tremendous stories of
really,
healing, and the people coming back from the dead and all that. And you know, yeah,
I
there
look
was
at
a
hospital as being a place where you go to if you have a traumatic emergency situation. I don't look at it as a place where you go to get health information. When
yes,
my father was in the hospital at the end of his life, they were giving him like the worst food ever. And I went and I spoke with the nutritionist, and I told her, I said, my father is a vegan and he doesn't eat any processed food. Could you please stop giving him all this white spaghetti? And she says, we don't give any processed food. And I was like, well, white spaghetti, that's not a whole food. And she said, that's not processed. I mean, she didn't have a clue about nutrition. And she had finished nutrition school. And, you know, so I don't go to hospitals for health. Um,
nutritionists are like worse than the average person, because they've like been. Yeah, I was just going to say, like, nutritionists are sometimes worse because they've been like miseducated. Do you know what I mean? Like the average person doesn't have such, you know, like such confidence around their information, but a nutritionist will come out and say things, and you're like, why would you ever have any amount of dairy in someone's diet? Like, there just should be zero. You know, why would you have any amount of meat? If someone's got heart disease, why would you ever recommend any animal products whatsoever? Like, I, I don't know.
yeah.
But yeah, it's and you know,
The
but
hospitals do have a purpose, you know, there is a purpose for it. Some of them, you know, my daughter got bit by our dog a number of years ago. And I was so grateful for the plastic surgeon who came to the hospital. I must have thanked that man 50 times.
yeah, totally.
But
I yeah,
they flip. And so there's a reason that we have them there for those situations.
I completely like I that's part of my one of my myths in the book is raw vegans don't need medication, or raw vegans don't need medical doctors or whatever. And I remember, you know, there's been a couple of situations. One of the main things I see is someone saying, I've been recommended to take these antibiotics. I'm not sure whether to take them or not, right? And I've seen that a number of times in forums, in little discussion groups and things like that. And I've I think that people are mistaking things. What people are mistaking the whole medication problem for is people being prescribed medication when the situation is not is a dietary condition. So if you've got digestive conditions like ulcerative colitis and things like that, then you shouldn't really take antibiotics. You should change your diet for sure. But if you have Lyme's disease, if you've got a mouth infection, if you've got a bacterial something in your guts, there's certain things that can happen, parasite kind of things from maybe being in a tropical country, then the antibiotics for those things are really good. Does it cause a detriment to your body? Yes, but you can recover from that as well. So I think that there's a lot of people that have had really bad experiences with antibiotics because they were prescribed them incorrectly. But that doesn't mean they shouldn't use them in certain cases. And